to my channel. I am actually just here to talk to you guys about some things that we can do to protect our workplace or get our workplace ready for COVID-19. All right. So first of all, we have to talk about the first point of entry. All right. So that is from the minute the person enters the property, there should be some kind of protection mechanism created to protect your workers or all persons on the compound from being exposed to COVID-19. All right. So we need to ensure that all persons are given some kind of facial protection from the initial stages. All right. The next thing is that if it is that you are COVID positive, then the best means of protection is to ensure that the affected individual has some kind of barrier between the droplets that they might produce and an individual that they might be communicating with at some point. The next thing is that we have to ensure that all persons who come on the property are actually screened before they enter the property. So are you having any flu-like symptoms? Do you have any member of your household that is experiencing flu-like symptoms? Have you come in contact with anybody who has been affected by COVID-19? Or have you communicated with anybody that has traveled to any of the affected countries of COVID-19 recently? And that is pretty much everywhere. So you have to screen them. The next thing is that all individuals that come onto the property, they should at least have some kind of temperature checks done. And this could be done by the security guard that is on the property. That individual should be trained on how to understand or detect variances in temperatures. That is, if it is that you're coming from a hot car or from walking on the road, then your temperature might reflect that of the environment that you're coming from. So they should be able to understand these differences and be able to adjust if necessary. I would recommend that you do like a maximum of 4 tests with the thermometers in a 10-minute period, but no more than that. And of course, if it is that you see that the temperature is not stabilizing, or it is stabilized but it is consistently high, then you know that that person probably has a fever. The next thing is that all individuals who come on the property should always be expected to sanitize by washing their hands or by using a sanitizer or by getting sprayed with some alcohol. These areas of sanitization should always be placed at a central point so that you can use those as central areas that are easily visible as a reminder to persons that they need to wash or sanitize. Or both, you know. It can eventually change cultures over time because it is something that they will not forget because it's right in their face. And it's easily accessible, so people really don't have an excuse as to why they should or shouldn't sanitize. The next thing is that we should always ensure that when we give out or distribute masks on the property, they should be told that they should not touch the masks. The front of the mask, a central spot, because the droplets are usually lodged in those areas, and over time the quality of the mask do become compromised because they do end up getting concentrated on that surface, and over time they do get saturated because of sweat, because of droplets being lodged on those areas over time. And if we touch them and touch something else, then there's a chance that we might contaminate those surfaces as well. So we must remove the mask by untying the strings to the back or removing it from the ears, folding it and throwing it away. If it's a disposable mask or if it's a reusable mask, fold it and place it in a paper bag or a plastic bag or a napkin and put it away and do not interact with it until it's time for you to wash it, which should be every day, and wear it. The next thing is that when persons are expected to wear a mask, it is a culture change. We weren't born wearing masks. So people need a reminder that they need to not wear their mask on their foreheads or their chins, or should just keep it on. So what we need to do is have someone, an occupational health and safety personnel, or a security guard, or a nurse that walks around to remind the persons to wear their masks, just to ensure that we are not affecting or creating a scenario where we can cause an effect on other persons, right? The next thing is that if it is that we have, and we more than likely will have, areas that persons have to congregate, whether it be on a production floor or in an office or in a canteen or in a boardroom where people usually have meetings and conferences, we have to rearrange those areas to facilitate social distancing. All right? So if you're in a canteen, take the chairs up, push the tables apart, have no more than 2 chairs per table. If it is that you can have 3 chairs per table and it maintains a social distancing number or unit of 3 to 6 feet, then do so. But it has to be between that amount. If it is that those chairs or tables are not removable, then put caution tape around the table, put caution tape around the chairs, tie them up, something, just put some barrier there to prevent persons from interacting with those spaces, or just as a reminder for them to not be able to interact with those, a reminder for them to not interact with those spaces. If you have a tea room or a boardroom, put up signs that says no more than 10 persons or 3 persons, depending on the size of the area, allowed at once. All right, you can put signs on the floors that says stop here, stand here, if it is that we're in a space where people are expected to line up. The next thing is that if we are in a production floor where people have to work on a line facing one another, we can put them diagonally so they won't stand directly in front of each other, so the chances of catching those droplets directly are reduced. The next thing is that we can also ensure that we have some kind of quarantine or isolation area if it is that somebody ends up developing some kinds of symptoms throughout the day while being at work, because we have to prepare for the worst case scenario. And if it is that we have that isolation area, we have to ensure that it is uninterfered with. So we have to find a secured spot. We have to put a sign there so people know that this is a quarantine/isolation area and it should remain uninterfered with. The next thing that we need to do is we need to ensure that there is at least a biohazard bin that is placed in that quarantine/isolation area, so that the individual, if there for long periods of time, drinks some water that you leave in there for them, they can dispose of it in that bin, or they can dispose of the mask in that bin. It's just a means of identification so that the persons who are handling the bin knows that these items in the bin are forms of contaminants. All right. The next thing is that whenever we are on the property, we have to ensure that our first aiders or any of our first responders, whether it be first aiders, occupational health and safety personnel, security guards, or nurses, they should have disposable gowns, sanitary shoes, N95s, disposable gloves. Whenever they're in action, they're carrying out the action of bringing that individual to that quarantine/isolation area until they're taken away by the government or any private entity that is allowed to do testing, depending on the country that you're from. So yeah, that's really what it is in essence. Stay tuned for my next video where I'll be speaking about how to get your homes COVID ready. All right.